where the wild winds run, where the skies stretch wide and kiss the sun. The sagebrush whispers, the rivers hum. This land's a story just begun. Wyoming calls, where the heart beats free. Mountains rise and dreams run deep. Past the borders, past the sign, there's a world alive beyond the fence line. Boots hit gravel and the prairie sings with every hoofbeat. The frontier rings from ranchers' hands to miners' veins. The spirit of the West remains. Wyoming calls, where the heart beats free. Mountains rise and dreams run deep. Past the borders, past the sign, there's a world alive beyond the fence line. So come ride with me through the dust and time. Find the soul of Wyoming beyond the fence line, beyond the fence beyond the fence line, beyond the fence beyond the fence line, where the wild winds run, where the skies stretch wide and kiss the sun.
Hey, Wyoming. How you guys doing? Wednesday, January 21st, coming to you from Las Vegas the next couple of days. Honestly, here on a little work trip. I've never been here before, at least stayed here. And boy, this place there's a lot of noise, a lot of lights. Definitely not my jam. It's like the opposite of my jam. But once in a while, I travel for work. We're here for a licensing show on a project that I've been involved in for about a decade. And so here I am coming to you from Las Vegas. I'm mostly going to stay in my hotel room, go to the trade show, come back to my hotel room. That's pretty much what the next 3 or 4 days look like for me. So great to have you guys watching the show today. I'm gonna just touch on I'm gonna shotgun a few real quick Wyoming news things, and then to get into what's going on in the world around us. Highly encourage you guys to look at my previous episodes where I talk about the UW funding, the Wyoming Business Council funding, where I talk about elections. It's all kind of a blur, right? You guys, the headlines are moving so fast. It's hard to keep track of. But hey, guess what? Speaking of headlines, we've got another person in the race for Wyoming governor. Gabriel Green is running a dino campaign, like I guess a dinosaur campaign. I don't know. He is running as a Democrat, but apparently in name only. So he's calling himself a dino. So that's kind of fun and exciting. It'll be interesting to see what comes out of his campaign. And what else is coming up in Wyoming here? By the way, feeling a little bit under the weather, so please bear with me. Monday, February 9th starts the legislative session. Might want to mark your calendars. Hey, if you guys want to hang out with me, I do plan to be there for the opening session of the Wyoming legislature, so that should be fun. If you like that sort of thing and if you think it's fun, come on back. Obviously, we're seeing an awful lot coming out of the Wyoming Freedom Caucus and what their legislative priorities are coming up. I'll do a different show on that. Don't want to spend a whole ton of time on that. Guys, this is going to be a budget session of all budget sessions. I think it's going to take, I've been told that they're going to try to get it done in 5 days, but I think there's going to be a lot going on in the legislature to get this done. And I think there's going to be a lot of back and forth. It'll be interesting to see where we end up on a lot of these issues. Obviously, we're starting to see people hop into all the different races across the state. My guess is as soon as the session is done, we're going to see all kinds of announcements, maybe some more governor candidates. Certainly nobody running in the Secretary of State spot yet, so that'll be interesting to see that. We are definitely seeing a lot going on across this nation. So I'm going to start by talking about, what's going on in Minneapolis, right? What's going on in Minnesota? There is a lot to unpack in there. And so I just want to talk with it. You guys should really watch my episode on immigration if you're curious where I stand on these things. But I think what I really want to see, first of all, I want to step back and I want us to realize that we probably would not even know about any of this if an independent journalist had not sort of started this wildfire, if you will. So I want you to think about that from an objective or a logical standpoint. Would we be just still going through the status quo if that video had not been released? Would our leaders in Washington, from President Trump down, would we not be addressing what's going on in these places had there not been an independent journalist who made a video? And I don't know the answer to that question, but it's something to think about. And the reason I want you to think about that is, what does Washington care about? We've been talking about fraud and illegal immigration and things like this for a while. And we would have expected them to be addressing this on their own, right? They kiboshed Doge last April and sent Elon packing. And I'm not sure we're going to see a whole lot of that coming back. So it's really interesting. I wonder where the heartbeat really is. And don't get me wrong. I mean, I am really glad that, our country, we now have a secure border. At least it looks really, really good according to what we're being told, right? And that we are handling immigration within this country. I think we need to be careful. The difference between, law and order and really kind of chaotic door-to-door searches. And, some of these things don't seem American. And I think we need to be careful with some of that stuff, especially some of what we're seeing going on, and this concern about political violence. we're sort of creating an environment that is a bit of a powder keg. I would like to see us do what we're doing, but do it not only in a legal way, but in a way that is, I guess you could say, maybe compassion's the wrong word, but we ought, I'm not talking about criminals here, right? Okay, so let me separate. Got people who have taken advantage of our, they need to be taken care of. They need to go. They don't deserve to be here. But I would ask us, perhaps, for some of these folks, they're not criminals. They're perhaps they've been here a long time. We maybe find a human way, a more human, caring way to deal with some of that. And that's not to be soft, but I think we should probably find ways to at least be kind. And look, my light won't work. My light's not just stopped working. Sorry, guys, got a little distracted here. Doing mobile studio here and just kind of making things work. So, anyways, I don't know. I just let's take care of what needs to be taken care of, but then let's also, you know, uh, use some of our God given compassion and at least treat these people that there are people that maybe they're not here legally, but we could treat them with dignity and respect as we work them through the process and perhaps deport them and remove them from our country. They've not, maybe they're not taking advantage of the system and they're not criminals and they're just living their daily lives. Yes, they're here illegally. I don't deny that, but maybe we could think about that. But it's concern. Tomorrow, or well, actually, no, take that back. What day is it? Today, actually, Trump will be speaking at the Davos conference. That'll be really interesting. When he's speaking at Davos, it'll be really interesting to see what he's going to have to say, especially about Greenland and things like that. So be watching for that, be paying attention to that. And yesterday we celebrated, January 20th, Trump's 1 year in office. And while I have differences in some of his policy approaches, especially fiscal policy, I want to encourage you guys to look at my episode where I actually talked about where I stand with Trump on different issues. You need to understand what drives the GDP numbers. You need to understand what drives inflation numbers to get to the truth on some of this stuff. And we are trying to spend ourselves out of these problems, and this is not going to bode well for us overall in the long term. And I think most of us know that, especially with our national debt and stuff like that. But really, really interesting to see what Trump will say on the world stage at Davos. That's going to be very interesting. Obviously, the main thing I already kind of talked about that in the U.S. news is kind of about ICE and all this stuff going on across the nation as they're removing criminals. It seems like they're also engaging an awful lot of citizens, perhaps in ways that they ought not to engage those citizens. So it'll be interesting to see how all that unfolds. Another thing that has kind of caught me, not by surprise, but sort of great interest. The Supreme Court has now said for multiple weeks that they are going to rule on Trump's tariff policies. And I can't help but wonder, well, A, they haven't done that. Now, it's not totally uncommon for them to delay rulings, but it sounded like they've been ready or they were ready to rule on this. So I can't help but wonder what might be going on behind the scenes in this issue. And I certainly hope, and I'm sure most of you can agree with me, certainly hope that during this time that the Supreme Court is not being compromised in any way to be coerced to make a decision one way or the other versus just looking at what their role is as the Supreme Court in making this decision, that it would be a nonpartisan, a rule of law, an interpretation of constitutional power, etc. And it would be just true to what the role of the Supreme Court has. I think this could create a lot of uncertainty in the market until they make this decision. Another study also came out recently that stated that consumers are actually paying 97% of the tariffs for the last year. And obviously, if you're watching this video, you are a consumer. You probably already know that. I mean, corporations are not generally, generous to where they're going to just eat cost. In some ways they might do that, but most of the time any business that wants to stay in business, they pass those intrinsic costs down to their buyers, right? So it'll be interesting to see what the Supreme Court does on that ruling. I think if you want to have tariffs, you got to get rid of income tax, or you've got to change. If you want to change the process, you kind of can't have all of these different taxes or indirect taxes in place and stacked on top of each other, because ultimately it gets you and I right really really badly. So that's kind of my nutshell thoughts on that part of what's going on in the world. Obviously, from what we hear, we're positioning resources in the Middle East, looking at potential intervention in Iran. Unfortunately, we're not getting the truth out of the news on that, but if you're connected with people on WhatsApp or Telegram, you get a different story of what's really going on in Iran. It's my understanding that there are thousands and thousands and thousands of these protesters that have been killed by the regime in Iran, and that is continuing as I sit here and record this video. So, the world is a powder keg in so many ways. This reminds me the world is not my home. I don't put my faith in my elected leaders. My faith is in God. And that we pray for Iran, that we pray for the decisions that our president has to make. We are responsible to do that, to pray for them. So you have that going on in Iran. You have the Ukraine conflict continuing without resolution. And then, of course, we've got Greenland, right? I'm really interested if Trump makes an ultimatum today at Davos uh, about Greenland. And it'll be interesting to see what happens there when it comes to Greenland. It's kind of interesting because rumor has it that Trump is prepared to spend right near $1 trillion to purchase Greenland. They're going to pay Denmark and then give $100,000 to every resident in Greenland. I have to then go back to my fiscal conservative hat and ask the question. So I guess we're just going to print another $1 trillion. What's interesting about that, you guys, and I'm going to sidetrack a little bit, is you guys know that government spending affects GDP, right? Government spending accounts for 25-ish% of GDP. And if we keep spending the way we are, it will account for more than 25% of the GDP. And we might just see that GDP going up because of government spending. I think that's something we have to keep an eye on, especially if we're going to spend $1 trillion in Greenland. By the way, we're just going to push a digital button and print the money and send it. So that can't be good for the US dollar, but that's not what this is about. Anyways, I digress. So what else is going on in the world? Well, those are the main things that we've got going on, guys. But if there's something that you'd like to hear me talk about, please do feel free to leave a comment on this video, and I will answer that. This video will probably be a little shorter than my usual 30-minute videos. I'm out of town, and but anywho, that's really a summary of what's going on. Hope you guys have enjoyed this quick sort of just update and conversation on what's going on briefly in Wyoming and then kind of in the world. And it's going to be interesting to see what the next moves are. And nobody knows, right? Nobody knows what Trump's going to say on his True Social next. One more thing actually just came to mind as I was sitting here. I guess we decided not to do the credit card cap. Trump's an idea guy, and I think sometimes all of us go, man, boy, he's got a lot of ideas. They don't always pan out. I think a lot of people are probably looking forward to credit card caps. But if you look at it on a basis of free market and principle, we have to be careful how much government controls things. And that's something for us to be aware of as conservatives. So, with that, I hope you guys have a blessed Wednesday. And tomorrow, I'm going to be talking about education, where I stand on education, things like that. And on Friday, it's kind of a special episode. I was going to actually talk to you guys about who I am and decided, boy, that would be a lot more fun to do that with my family. And I'm out of town right now. So on Friday, I'm going to talk to you guys. I have a lot of people that don't agree with me on everything, right? But also, they're very concerned that my faith will somehow affect their freedoms. And so on Friday, I'm going to share my heart with you guys and with Wyoming, how my faith plays a role in how I would govern, but also in my life, and why my faith actually is of benefit, even to those of you that disagree with me from a governing standpoint. So I look forward to sharing that with you guys on Friday. With that, God bless you guys. Goodbye from Las Vegas. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.
Sun up shining on a gravel drive, granddad's coffee in a styrofoam cup. Says, boy, this world will tell you keep what's yours, but that ain't how we were brought up. We bow our heads at the table, thank the Lord for the food and the fight, 'cause loving folks who love you back is easy, but that ain't walking in the light. Love your neighbor, mow his yard when he's hurting. Love your brother when he's slamming your door. Love the stranger when your pride says ignore him. Love the bitter heart twice what you did before. You can love your friends on Sunday morning, but Jesus taught a different kind of war. If you really want to shake this world for heaven, love your enemies more. Yeah, love your enemies more. She's got a Bible with a cracked leather spine, highlighter on every other page. Says turn the other cheek, ain't just a slogan. It's a narrow road you gotta pave. We passed the plates and the casseroles, fix the porch where the stone rolls through. When they curse your name, you hit your knees, say Father bless them like you do. Love your neighbor, mow his yard when he's hurting. Love your brother when he's slamming your door. Love the stranger when your pride says ignore him. Love the bitter heart twice what you did before. You can love your friends on Sunday morning, but Jesus taught a different kind of war. If you really want to shake this world for heaven, love your enemies more. Yeah, love your enemies more. She's got a Bible with a cracked leather spine, highlighter on every other page. Says turn the other cheek, ain't just a slogan. It's a narrow road, you gotta pay.
You pass the plates and the casseroles, fix the porch when a storm rolls through. When they curse your name, you hit your knee.
Say, Father, bless him like